Hello and welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, my friends. I'm Brian Zipsy, and of course, I'm joined by my partner, Matt Triple Crown Schiffman. Matt, it's good to put Triple Crown in the middle of your name. How you doing today?
I'm doing terrific, and you're absolutely right, Brian. What an exciting weekend that was with the Triple Crown. Getting to see the Triple Crown can't be better than that.
You were there. I was there. It was an experience, man. Let me tell you, quite the scene. For me, Matt, it was my fourth Triple Crown, but after almost a lifetime of not seeing it, wow, yes, it brought back a lot of emotions. Wonderful to see. And folks, guess what we're going to be talking about today? You probably got it right. It's American Pharoah, and more American Pharoah. And we're going to kind of talk about the path of our 12th Triple Crown winner, American Pharoah. Matt, can we start this story about, a dozen years ago when a plucky New York bred, a real fan favorite named Funny Side was going for the Triple Crown? And
Yeah,
Funny Side,
I think we certainly can, because who was the horse that beat Funny Side in his Triple bid, Brian?
yeah, Matt, that was Empire Maker, a talented horse. One thing that I always loved about Empire Maker, Matt, was his look. He was regal, he was royal, fitting of that name Empire Maker. And now we have another horse who I think, in all appearances and all the way he handles himself, is regal. He's royal. He's American Pharoah. What happened 12 years ago?
12 years ago, Empire Maker defeated Funny Side in his Triple Crown bid, and then Empire Maker headed off to be a stallion, and one of his offspring turned out to be Pioneer of the Nile.
Pioneer of the Nile, who of course begot American Pharoah. Pioneer of the Nile was a second place finisher in the Derby himself. Empire Maker's sire and bridled was a Kentucky Derby winner. So there's a lot of Triple Crown royalty in this family. But Empire Maker proved to be one of those horses well up to the task of the Belmont Stakes. And he stopped one of the pretenders of the Triple Crown, Funny Side. His grandson would not be stopped. And I see, we see similarities now that we know American Pharoah, what he is, a champion, a great horse. I see a lot of similarities in some of the great horses before him. And his granddad, Empire Maker, is one that I do see some similarities, not only in the look, but also the talent.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. And Pioneer of the Nile started off an amazing run for the Zayat family in the Kentucky Derby, leading up to everything that American Pharoah did. Just an amazing streak of years for the Zayats. It was in 2009 that Pioneer of the Nile ran in the Kentucky Derby, the Zayats' first horse in the Kentucky Derby. And Pioneer of the Nile looked like a winner in their first try, only to lose in an amazing way.
Yeah, he was shaken, rattled, and rolled down the stretch there, Matt, by Mind That Bird, of course, the 50-1 runaway winner of the Derby. But yeah, briefly, it looked like Pioneer of the Nile was in great shape on the outside of that 2009 Kentucky Derby. And it wasn't but 2 years later when Animal Kingdom was the winner. But who was second again? It was the Zayat Stables runner, Nero. Then 1 year later, Matt.
1 year later, again, they look like they have a winner coming down the stretch with Bodemeister. Again, to be run down right at the end of the race, this time by I'll Have Another, who obviously was quite a horse.
Bodemeister ran a big Derby. He ran fast early, and he looked great as they came down the stretch, early in the stretch. He got caught by I'll Have Another. Bodemeister ran another good race in the Preakness. So this story of American Pharoah, I think, unfolds. First, we talked about Empire Maker, but then how close the Zayats came in 3 out of 4 years, 3 Kentucky Derbies and a Preakness. So maybe they were that were due.
Yeah, and don't forget in 2010 they didn't have a Derby runner, but they had the overwhelming Derby favorite in Escandarea heading into the Derby, only to have him have to scratch out of the race just a few days before the Derby. So 4 consecutive years they were right there.
They paid their dues, didn't they? They brought their horses to the Triple Crown in great shape. They came close until 2015, and we know the story from there. Matt, you know, they were this was a homebred. They owned the mare, Pioneer of the Nile. Of course, they kept. This was a homebred that they were going to sell at auction as a yearling.
Yeah, pretty amazing. They had him in a sale, and I as they approached the sale, a lot of advisors were urging Ahmed Zayat, uh, telling him, "You really don't want to lose this horse." And I think they might have gotten lucky for the very first time with American Pharoah, because he had a little bit of a bang on one of his legs heading into the sale, and for some reason that put a lot of buyers off of the horse. And listening to his advisors, Ahmed Zayat was able to buy back uh, American Pharoah for about $300,000.
They'll tell you now that they had buyer's remorse and they weren't going to let American Pharoah go at that sale. You know, part of legend, part of the story, but whatever, buyer's remorse or a little bit of luck. They intended at one time to sell him. They didn't sell him. They kept him. And as we went on, we started to see more and more about the American Pharoah story unfold. They invited trainers. They showed videos of some of their, Bob Baffert, of course, being one of them. And trainers just couldn't get enough of what they were seeing early on as American Pharoah was working. Bob Baffert was lucky enough to win the sweepstakes to get the Zayats to send American Pharoah to him.
Yes, he certainly was very lucky, and that for the Zayats, living in New Jersey and having the horse out on the West Coast, it was a great opportunity for Mr. Baffert.
Great opportunity for Mr. Bob Baffert, and one that he jumped on. He wanted this horse right from the start. I don't think there's any question that Baffert went after this colt hard, just from seeing the video of his early works as a 2-year-old. And then, of course, he began his career. He began his career at Belmont, and it did not go as smoothly as Baffert or the Zayats thought it would, or all the people that already knew of his growing legend before his first start. What happened in his first start, Matt?
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that knowing what we know about American Pharoah and his personality that we know now, going into his first race, he just lost it. He came completely unglued, totally lost his race in the paddock before he got in the gate. But this was an American Pharoah that was equipped with blinkers and was totally distracted by everything. Ended up running, I think, was it fifth in that first race, but never in contention. And it ended up with good things because they made changes. They took the blinkers off, and in went another part of the American Pharoah legend. In went those earplugs.
Yeah, Matt, he showed some speed that day. He faded to fifth, well beaten fifth. Nowadays, as I'm much older than I once was, Matt, I go to these concerts now and I have to put some earplugs in. Just how it is as you get old, folks. For all you young folks out there, you might either choose not to go to those loud concerts anymore, or just put some ear muffs in, put some earplugs in, and that's what they did with American Pharoah. The rest has been history. Matt, I don't know how many times I've seen a horse beaten pretty badly, fifth, 9 lengths or so away from the winner home in that maiden race, come right back in a Grade 1 race. He gets entered in a Grade 1 race. I mean, that shows huge confidence from his connections. Bob Baffert knew exactly what he had, and he wasn't going to let that strange circumstance of losing it a little bit and then running fifth in the maiden special weight deter American Pharoah from becoming a great horse. So the Del Mar Futurity, Grade 1 is his next race. He's bet. He's almost the favorite off of that pretty poor maiden race. That's how much buzz there was about American Pharoah. Did he live up to it in the Del Mar Futurity?
He certainly did, and we all should have been paying pretty close attention when Baffert does something like that, putting a maiden in a grade one, and he blew the field away. He won by 4.5 lengths against some horses that had some pretty good reputations at that point in the juvenile season.
I think they still do. I think those horses he was beating early on, Calculator,
Calculator.
Texas Red, they're good horses. So yeah, it just was a case of the first line, as you like to say, that first race, Matt, was draw a line through it. Baffert knew what he had. Grade one winner in his second race. Then he comes back, he stretches out in the front runner stakes, and it was I remember it was on NBC Sports, and it was kind of a thing of beauty, that second race, second stakes race, the front runner, grade one. It ended up only being his third race of his career, but his last race as a 2-year-old. Did you know then, Matt, that he was something a little bit out of the ordinary?
Well, I think maybe by the time we got past the Breeders' Cup and Texas Red won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, because again in the front runner, American Pharoah soundly beat Texas Red in that race, who finished third in there, and American Pharoah won the front runner by over 3 lengths. Another easy win that was extremely flattered by the Breeders' Cup Breeders' Cup result. And then that was it for the season for American Pharoah. They found a little bit of a bruise in his left front hoof, and they took it easy. And I think that may have turned out to be a really good thing for the horse. Again, we're talking about all these pieces kind of falling together. Maybe not by plan or design, but they all kind of turned into good things. I'm recalling a conversation that you and I were part of at Belmont Park when we were there with the great jockey Richard Migliori, and he was talking about how he thinks that missing the Breeders' Cup was a really good thing for American Pharoah, because it allowed him to mature, it allowed him to kind of take an old school path that horses used to. Horses used to stop around that time of the year and not continue racing and have time to develop and mature and get stronger over the winter. And all turned out to be a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not completely buying it, Matt. I think as good as he is now, as great as he is now, he probably would have won that Breeders' Cup. I saw a lot of 2-year-olds running well past the Champagne, the Laurel Futurity, and the old Heritage Stakes at Philadelphia Park, well into October and November. So, yeah, be that as it may, he didn't get his chance to run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He's still, from those 2 Grade One wins in overpowering fashion, Matt, he was the champion 2-year-old of 2014. Rightly so, as it turns out. We can't argue with that decision now. I think both of us thought that he should be off of those 2 Grade One wins. Then he had almost 6 months off. The little injury, Baffert didn't rush him back, and he comes back in a sloppy track at Oaklawn Park, and everybody loved what they saw in the Rebel Stakes at Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Yeah, again, and we got a little glimpse of what was to come with American Pharoah when we saw how much he relished the wet, sloppy going, and just blew away that field again, this time by over 6 lengths.
Yeah, the Rebel was a runaway, and it kind of proved to everybody. We've seen a lot of 2-year-old champions over recent years, especially, just not come back as the same horse. And right away, you knew, well, American Pharoah was coming back as a really good 3-year-old. Was he going to go on to become a Kentucky Derby winner? We didn't know that yet, but the transition, the near 6 months off between the front runner and the Rebel, was obviously a smooth one. He looked as good, as strong, as big, better than ever, and it was on to the Arkansas Derby. After the Rebel, there was no doubt that American Pharoah was the Kentucky Derby favorite.
Yeah, no question about it, and no doubt in my mind at that time, as I recall back on some of our old shows, Brian, on a dry track again now, 8-length victory in the Arkansas Derby. But it didn't stop people. There were lots of people talking Dortmund. There were lots of people talking firing line. But uh, American Pharoah was showing his stuff.
American Pharoah was showing his stuff, Matt, and I think after 36 years of frustration, I think it was fair for people such as myself to remain skeptical. I wanted to buy into the hype and believe how great he was, but after so many years of seeing these horses disappoint as they get to the grind of the Triple Crown, and as they get to more of a pace battle and better horses and the bigger fields, that it wears on him. But when he got to the Derby, he really showed us, he showed me, he showed everyone something, because he was in for the first real fight. Forget about the maiden race. He was in for the first real fight of his life, and he persevered in the Kentucky Derby, going 8 wide coming out of the far turn after. This is a 1.25 mile race with 18 horses. This is a lot of exertion already, a lot of mental pressure to come out 8 wide and then run the whole stretch and run down firing line in Dortmund and hold off Frosted. Big performance.
Huge performance, and way outside, stellar field, and it, looking back on it, I heard assistant trainer Jimmy Barnes, Baffert's number one man, who, let's face it, has been the guy that has had his hands on American Pharoah every single day since the Triple Crown campaign began. Looking back at it, Jimmy Barnes said that American Pharoah got really fit after the Kentucky Derby race. He didn't get tired. He got stronger.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, Matt. But the Preakness was next, and the Preakness, unfortunately for the Preakness, I don't think all the horses in the race ran their best race. So it was just a case of the best horse in the race running his race, and a lot of the others not running, and there was no competition. He won by more than 8 lengths. He could have won by more than that. It was a runaway like we've only seen in the Preakness a few times.
Yeah, it certainly was. And I don't know, Brian. I kind of liken it a little bit more as a near knockout blow, because yes, Dortmund didn't run his race. Yes, Firing Line didn't run his race. But guess what? They're on the sidelines right now, and American Pharoah did not, and is continuing. So yeah, I'll give those two an excuse. But let me tell you what, they took some serious blows from this Triple Crown winner.
Yeah, and that's coming from the Kentucky Derby. So clearly, the Kentucky Derby was hardest on those two horses as opposed to American Pharoah. Uh, Crazy storm just before the Preakness. We talked about his mental fortitude, his being a smart horse, an easygoing horse, and I think he handled the situation of that. The heavens opened up, and maybe they were opening up to accept American Pharoah into the hallowed halls, because when he got to Belmont, didn't turn a hair. He looked better than ever. He looked big, strong, and just in great shape. He was holding his flesh extremely well. He was working. That's one thing that strikes me about this horse, Matt. He just looks so effortless and so good and so smooth and so beautiful in the mornings. He got to Belmont, perhaps even, dare I say, peaking. I mean, people didn't think the Triple Crown was as doable anymore because the horses couldn't handle the strain of the 5 weeks or the path before going into the 5 weeks. This is a rare circumstance where he might have even been peaking come June 6th at Belmont Park.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. He did not lose anything. He didn't lose any weight. He didn't lose anything. He was probably at his best, and he ran just a huge race. He was in control every single step of the way, out to a quick 1-length lead, and I think he knew where his competition was. He wasn't going to let him go by, and got ahead and just cranked out the 24 and change fractions all the way around the track. And guess what? Not many horses can do that going 1.5 miles. And he just
Yeah, American Pharoah, to me, this is the race that erased any sort of skepticism myself or anybody really should have. I think this was easily American Pharoah's best race, his most impressive race. Yeah, as soon as the race was over, I mentioned that to the guys around you, included Matt, that he actually ran 24 and change every quarter, and I think that's phenomenal. Today's racehorses don't do it. Secretariat did it a little differently and a little faster, especially early. But for a horse to run 1.5 miles this day and age, I don't care that the track was fast. For him to run 24 and change every single quarter is machine-like, to borrow a Secretariat reference. And yeah, much the best. I thought Frosted ran a really good race, as good as Frosted can run. And he was no match. He was no match for American Pharoah. And it makes me think that we're only going to see better and better things from American Pharoah in the future. Hopefully we get to see those things. Hopefully there's nothing that goes slightly haywire, because he is worth so much money. We want to see him maybe at Monmouth Park in the Haskell. We want to see more. This is a great horse. We want to see more, Matt.
Yeah, without question. He was completely worthy of being the next Triple Crown winner. In my opinion, he falls right in line with the Triple Crown winners of the 1970s. Hey, I was a child of the 1970s, and those horses, Secretariat, Seattle Slew, Affirmed, those were my heroes in that decade of racing, which many thought was one of the greatest decades in thoroughbred racing ever. And he fits right in line with those horses.
Yeah, it's a different era, Matt. I love those horses, of course, as a child myself, and I agree with you. I finally agree with you that American Pharoah is worthy. He's worthy. I was worried that the next Triple Crown winner after all these years might step into it a little bit, or luck into it a little bit, or just have things fall his own way. American Pharoah is worthy. He's deserving of being number 12, and I can't wait to see more. Matt, on that note, I think we should call it a show. Let's sign off with American Pharoah winning the Belmont Stakes from Saturday at Belmont Park, making him the 12th Triple Crown winner. Thanks for being with me today.
It's my pleasure, as always, Brian. And everybody, thanks for watching.
Yes, thanks for watching, folks. As always, we're brought to you by Horse Racing Nation and Derby Wars. Take it away, American Pharoah.
Ready for the start. They're off in the Belmont Stakes. Not a great start for American Pharoah, but he will be sent to the lead by Victor Espinosa, so he waits no longer. Right to the front for American Pharoah in the race to the first turn, but he did not come out of the gate all that well. Frosted is away running in second position. Materiality is third to the outside. A ground-saving run for Mubtahij, who's right behind American Pharoah into that first turn, then Made from Lucky, Keen Ice, Taylor Verve, and the trailer is Frumento. The opening quarter mile was 24 seconds flat. A sensible fraction for American Pharoah, who leads the way on that sweeping first turn here at Belmont Park. And Materiality is kept close by John Velasquez, running in second position. Mubtahij, Frosted, and Keen Ice are right there. Keen Ice is not far behind at all. He's 2 lengths off the lead. And then it's Made from Lucky. It's 4 lengths more back to Taylor Verve and Frumento, a 48 and 4.5 mile. So it continues to be a moderate tempo up the backstretch here. And it is American Pharoah who leads the way by 3/4 of a length. And Materiality keeps the pressure on in second. Mubtahij is third on the inside. And then comes Keen Ice in fourth. Frosted is fifth. Made from Lucky, ridden along to keep up with the field. He's sixth, and he's 4.5 lengths off of American Pharoah. Frumento and Taylor Verve are at the back of the pack. So, American Pharoah is halfway home in the Belmont. 3/4 went in 1:13 and 2/5 seconds. And he begins his run into the far turn. 3/4 of a length ahead of Materiality in second. And then it's Keen Ice on the outside of Mubtahij. Frosted in traffic behind them. And then Made from Lucky on the outside. Around the far turn. And American Pharoah continues to lead the way. He's on top by 3/4 of a length. Mubtahij is off the rail, and now he's a length behind in second. And American Pharoah kicks away. American Pharoah has opened up a 2-length lead as they come to the top of the stretch. And Frosted has moved up into second, and they're into the stretch. And American Pharoah makes his run for glory as they come into the final furlong. Frosted is second with 1/8 of a mile to go. American Pharoah's got a 2-length lead. Frosted is all out at the 16th pole. And here it is. The 37-year wait is over.